MAGA Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, is blaming Democrat Al Green, who was recovering from surgery when he appeared in scrubs at the House of Representatives to vote against the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. That is who Mike Johnson is blaming. Now, this is, of course, ridiculous, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But just consider, if your entire plan depends on one guy who had surgery not showing up to make the math work, it might not be the strongest plan.
What happened yesterday with the vote on Secretary Mayorkas? Why bring that to the floor if you didn't have the votes? And will you hold another vote to impeach him?
Yeah, on impeachment, last night was a setback, but democracy is messy. We live in a time of divided government. We have a razor-thin margin here, and every vote counts. Sometimes when you're counting votes and people show up when they're not expected to be in the building, it changes the equation. But listen, we have a duty and a responsibility to take care.
Sometimes when people show up to vote and they're not expected to be in the building, it changes the math. And of course, he's referencing Congressman Al Green, who showed up in a wheelchair wearing hospital scrubs after surgery to vote to prevent the ridiculous impeachment of Mayorkas. These are sick people. You have to understand that on a personal level, these are sick people. How dare he be okay enough after surgery to show up and vote and ruin our great math for something that is totally worth doing? A funny moment is Johnson was asked, what would you say to Americans concerned that Congress can't get anything done with you in charge? And he goes, oh, it's just not true.
What would you say to Americans concerned that Congress isn't able to do basic functions?
Well, it's just simply not true. We're governing here. Sometimes it's messy. The framers anticipated that you would have a system where people with very different philosophical viewpoints that come from different parts of the country and different constituencies would have different ideas on how to resolve their problems. But what they also anticipated is that we'd be able to get in a room and arm wrestle over public policy and come to consensus to move the ball forward for the most people. That is what's happening here. You're seeing the messy sausage making, the process of democracy play out. And
it's all so messy, and we're showing you how the sausage is made. The question is completely correct in its assumption. They are unable to govern. And the entire speakership fiasco itself is an example of that. The continually failed impeachment inquiry on Joe Biden is an example of that. The failed impeachment vote on Mayorkas is an example of that. Opposition to the bill they wanted and negotiated on the border is another example of that. And again, if your path to impeachment is counting on one guy to be stuck at the hospital after surgery, that is not a strong impeachment. And of course, they didn't even have all of their own party members on his side. Now, here's one bonus clip on this. This is sort of funny. You can't get away from conspiracies with these people. Here is right-wing provocateur Charlie Kirk speculating that those three Republicans, Buck, Gallagher, and McClintock, who voted against impeaching Mayorkas, that they must be getting blackmailed. There's no other reason that they would vote against it.
You know that we were one vote away from impeaching Alejandro Mayorkas, who's a traitor to the United States? But there were three Republicans, Tom McClintock, Ken Buck, and Mike Gallagher, who said, no, we don't want to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. We're going to put the numbers up there on screen. Makes you wonder, are these people compromised? Ken Buck especially. What has Ken Buck done in his life? Is somebody holding blackmail over him?
Right.
Now you might say, Charlie, that's an exaggeration. There's no evidence of that. Hold on. Remember when the smooth-talking Southerner, I forget his name, from Tennessee, the guy who said that he got punched in the kidneys, said that there are people that walk the floors and whisper in your ears, don't vote for this or else the naked pictures that we have with you with the underage girls are going to be leaked. Those are his words, not ours. It makes you wonder if Ken Buck, Mike Gallagher, and Tom McClintock are compromised. What
Now, of course,
do they have on these people?
Yeah, as he even admits, there isn't actually evidence. The claim that one person said sometimes threats are made against some people is not evidence that Buck, Gallagher, or McClintock have, kiddie porn pictures or whatever it is that's being intimated here at all. And whatever the reasons for Buck, Gallagher, and McClintock to vote against this impeachment, they were the only ones who actually had the, what would we call it, the testicular fortitude to say, hey, there's no evidence against this guy. Under every president, you have people who cross the border illegally. Under Joe Biden, by the way, a higher percentage of those apprehended are being deported, and a higher percentage of those who cross, we believe, are being apprehended. And you could say that's good, it's bad, it's evidence, but it just is what it is. That's the data we have from the very same DHS that existed under Trump. Different people running it, but same DHS, same record-keeping abilities. So it's total speculation, baseless speculation, and they are now coming up with anything they can to try to explain away these failures. It was because of a Democrat who was doing too well after surgery. It was because of 3 blackmailed Republicans or whatever it is that they claim. It is failure after failure for this party. And my hope is that it continues. This is really one of those cases where their failures are good for Joe Biden. They are good for Democrats in November, and they are good for the American people who would not benefit in any way from the impeachment of Mayorkas at the end of the day. You've heard me talk before about the show's financial accounts being hacked. It is a horrible experience. It can happen to anyone. Look at the stats, and our sponsor, Aura, gives you peace of mind. Aura is the all-in-one solution to keep your accounts safe. Aura scans the dark web for your personal info, emails, passwords, social security numbers, and alerts you if anything is found and helps you fix the problem fast. You also get alerts about suspicious credit inquiries. Aura protects all of your devices from malware with state-of-the-art antivirus, and Aura helps you manage what your kids can do on their devices with really easy-to-use parental controls. You can try Aura for free for 2 weeks at aura.com/Pacman. Your usernames and passwords could already be floating around. It takes just seconds to find out using Aura's free trial, so you can change your passwords if you need to. The link is down below.